In 1973, Richard Nixon tried to fire a guy named Archibald Cox. He was currently working in the Justice Department investigating Nixon for the Watergate scandal. You know, when Nixon broke into the DNC and planted microphones everywhere. He ordered this guy, his attorney general, to fire Cox and effectively shut down the case. But this guy said no. His attorney general refused to do it and resigned. So Nixon went to the guy below him, the deputy attorney general, and asked him to fire Cox. But he also said no and resigned. Nixon had to go all the way to this guy named Robert Bork before he could finally find someone who would fire Cox. And even after he did it, Bork said he was still going to resign anyway. The firing of Cox outraged the entire country. The White House started getting tons of telegrams from angry citizens. Congress introduced multiple articles of impeachment. And a year later, Nixon was impeached and was forced to resign. In 1981, after first assuming office, Ronald Reagan tried to fire 16 inspectors general. These inspectors are meant to hold the executive branch accountable and make sure there's no waste or fraud or corruption. But Reagan obviously didn't like that idea because he fired all of them and once again caused a public outrage. The uproar from Congress was so bad that Reagan was forced to rehire a bunch of them and reverse part of his decision. Later on, his vice president George Bush tried to do the exact same thing, and guess what? Congress stopped him again. My point in saying this is to show that every time a president does something wrong or corrupt or unjust, Congress and the people have always been there to stop him. Until now. In his first 19 days of office, President Trump has gone further than Nixon or Reagan could ever dream of. He's fired 17 inspectors general. He's removed protections from civil service. He's placed any senior staff that disagree with him on leave. He's offered buyouts to 2 million federal employees and gotten 65,000 of them to resign. And now he's firing everyone in the DOJ who investigated him in his first term and gathering a list of everyone involved in the January 6 cases. When Nixon tried to do something 10 times smaller than this, he was ousted from the presidency by the people and by Congress, many of whom were not only Democrats, but also Republicans. But now President Trump is going infinitely further than any of that, and no one seems to bat an eye. Because Trump is invincible. He has Congress in his pocket. He has half the country believing that he's some prophet come to save us all, when in reality, he's just consolidating more and more executive power. And one of the only things that can stop him now is the Supreme Court, which has a 6-3 Republican majority. This is what you should be paying attention to. Not buying Greenland, not making Canada the 51st state, not anything to do with the Panama Canal. This. Pay attention to this. Because behind the ruse of all these fake distractions he's setting up, this is what he's actually spending his time doing.